welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's not Chris Carter, but it is Doug Gottlieb filling in for CC this morning. That was a solid high.
Jenna Wolf, good
Nick
to see you.
Wright is here. What's going on, guys? It's good to have you, Doug.
Great to be here.
CC's off for the day, but I'm sure you won't miss a beat. Come in, some
Doug's
hot
great.
takes.
Doug's great. And America doesn't think Doug and I like each other.
That's why I'm so excited for
Doug
the show.
and I actually like each other a lot. He just has bad sports opinions. But now we got to do this.
Oh, you see what happened there? You got 3 hours to make
Plus, I got the heart out, so I can't.
Hey, we got news on the Warriors, LeBron, and of course Tiger Woods, who's playing this weekend. But first, or next weekend, some huge World Cup news coming today. And for that, we are going to send it over to Rob Stone and Alexi Lalas, live from Moscow.
All right, Jenna, thank you. Rob Stone and Alexi Lalas here with you from iconic Red Square. A lot going on already in the World Cup world. Spain, one of the favorites to potentially win another title, are set to fire their manager one day before the World Cup starts. But the big news that impacts the United States right now, going on live just a few miles away from us in Moscow, are the two bid committees making their pitch to FIFA to host the 2026 World Cup. Right now, it is a Moroccan bid taking on the United bid, which involves Canada, Mexico, and the United States. The United States, Mexico, Canada, they've already come in front of the FIFA board and made their pitch. Right now, images are coming on as Morocco tries to sway those last voters. As we speak at the moment, and this is very fluid, we'll get to that in a second, we believe there's going to be 206 voting nations, meaning the magic number to get that simple majority is 104 votes. Let's backtrack, though. Alexi Lalas, why is this such a pivotal day for soccer in North America and particularly in the United States?
Because it can fundamentally change things. It can be a seminal moment, and it can be a beacon and something to look at to drive this sport forward on and off the field. We have already lived the power of World Cups, whether it's a men's World Cup or a women's World Cup. It changes the culture, it changes the country, it changes the sport, it changes individuals. You're looking at one right here. And to have that generation and to have that return, but return in a unique way with this shared World Cup with our friends from the North and the friends from the South. And we were listening to the speeches, and I think the United bid was very interesting in the way that they approached it. They had young players, 3 different players from each different country, men and women. And the way that they talked about it and the personal part of it and what a World Cup can do and growing up and watching World Cups. But then also, ultimately, they threw in the biggest thing, which is the amount of money that this is going to generate. And that is where you have to drive it home to all of these voters right now, is the amount of money that's going to be generated in the estimated $11 billion mark. That money is going to go to their countries and to their membership when they are voting. That is going to be very, very important in terms of this, this process.
The United bid estimates that $50 million would go to each national federation should they win. We take a look at how the vote goes down, and all eligible FIFA member nations will vote. There is some consternation right now that 4 U.S. territories could abstain from voting. You need a simple majority to win the bid. And again, this is the expanded World Cup we're talking about. So it's not the 32-team field that will kick off tomorrow. It's 48 teams in 2026. Your 3 options on the bid ballot, essentially Morocco, the United bid, none of the bids. You could also abstain. And again, we're waiting to find out what our total voting numbers will be. Again, we're working with 206, meaning a magic number is 104. And the FIFA World Cup vote for 2026, it is streaming live in its entirety right now on the Fox Sports app and foxsports.com. Rob Stone and Alexi Lalas again back here in Red Square. As soon as voting is set to take place, we will get you back to live coverage. But coming up, plenty more from New York City.
All right, Rob and Alexi, thank you so much. We'll hear much more from you guys as soon as the vote comes in. But first, back here, Homeland, basketball may be behind us, but talking about basketball is certainly not, especially when it's a story like this one. The Golden State Warriors held their championship parade yesterday. By definition, it's supposed to be all fun and games, celebrating the Warriors' 3rd title in 4 years. But things got a little bit awkward at one point. Take a listen.
And then I heard you tell Kevin Durant he can have whatever contract he wants next year.
Yeah, that was just for the media. He can't have anything like that at all. Mid-level. Yeah, mid-level, behind closed doors.
Because I think last year he told Steph he could have any contract he wants too.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, that was different. He's been here from the run, the way before days. He's earned it.
and there ended the Warriors' cohesion right there.
So much for chemistry. That's when it began. The first Fisher.
So maybe the intention there was to be funny and a joke, but you heard a lot of ooh.
What are you doing?
When it happened that way.
I understand it's a parade and you're trying to have fun, but there's an upside and a downside to every decision you make. The upside there was so minimal.
Yep.
And the downside there is in 18 days, if Kevin Durant leaves, people are going to blame you. I don't understand what Bob Myers, the GM's doing there, but go ahead.
Well, busting chops.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You guys are taking it way too literal because a couple people in the front are like, ooh.
Well, you didn't need to say it. It was unnecessary.
It was funny.
There's already a hint of tension there. Just
I don't think
bit.
I don't think there's a hint of tension. I don't. You're going to offer him the max. He's going to get the max. Done deal. It's already decided. KD took a little bit less money so that this thing could work, and now he's going to get the supermax deal. I don't. We've all been on sports teams before.
Right.
And even if you read the column in Sports Illustrated where Lee Jenkins, followed KD around, KD's like, look, I like to give trash talk, and that's the way I was brought up. I mean, obviously with all his burner accounts, he was talking trash and defending himself. But I really think we're making a do about absolutely nothing.
Well, in an effort to make this an actual segment, I'm just going to carry on with the topic that we are going with. You don't agree with Doug. You think that pride might be able to get in the way a little bit here.
I mean, I agree with Doug in this regard. I don't think that comment's a huge deal. I think it's a dumb thing for the GM to say because there's no win there. The only thing you can do there is alienate or even slightly anger the best player on your team. But as far as pride getting in the way, that's more about whether or not guys such as Clay and Draymond are what they want and what their goals are. Draymond took substantially less money preemptively to help them set the table for Durant. Draymond then was the leading guy going out and recruiting Durant. Draymond is qualified when he hits free agency for a supermax contract because he's won Defensive Player of the Year. Now, the Warriors can give him that because they're not constrained by the salary cap because he's their own guy, but it will put them in an enormous luxury tax predicament. Then there's Clay. And when it comes to pride, is Clay interested in finding out, could I be the best player on a team? Could I be I was the second best player on a champion. Could I be the best player on a good team? Is that something that matters at all to Klay Thompson? Those are the types of things when it says pride, those are the types of questions that could derail this thing because Steph's locked up long term, and as long as Kevin signs an extension this offseason, he'll be locked up long term, so they'll have their two best guys locked up for the immediate future. But I know you don't like their bench, so you believe they need Clay and Draymond in their current roles.
Do you like their bench?
No, they're very top-heavy.
Yes, that's what's changed. Everybody says, well, there's a 73-win team, you added Kevin Durant. No, they had to completely change the makeup of this team to add Kevin Durant, and so they have this mixture of guys that are old, like Iguodala, who broke down the playoffs. Even when he came back from injury, he got injured again the same game. Sean Livingston, who's been incredible on one leg, never shoots outside of 15 feet. And then you got these young guys that aren't quite ready for prime time. So they have to fix their bench. But the question is, does pride, does ego ultimately lead to the downfall of this dynasty? I think it's very much in question. When you read the comments of Draymond Green saying, hey, listen, I took a pay cut before, I'm not. I mean, the reality is I don't think Draymond Green was getting $94 million anywhere. $82 million at that time was seen as a lot of money, considering what he had done to earn that contract. He is invaluable to them, but he is replaceable. Okay? He is replaceable. Remember, Horace Grant was the power forward, he wasn't what Rodman was, but the first three championships, he was the power forward. Then they have Rodman, who's a different and maybe more versatile defensive weapon and a better rebounder. But again, you can replace those pieces. You couldn't replace Pippen. You couldn't replace Jordan. The same is true for Draymond. If Draymond pushes this thing and says, I want the Supermax or I'm leaving, it will lead to either the downfall or he will be gone because he can be replaced. Those other two stars
I don't know who replaces him in the league, though. Like, I don't know what's the
Draymond?
player. Yeah. I understand what you're saying, which is the tier of player that he is, right? Wherever you want to rank him as a player. Like, those guys can be interchangeable to a degree. But for this specific team, not only the fact that he allows them to switch everything defensively, not only the fact that he is their best rim defender, but he's also their tough guy and, to me, their on-court leader. There's not a lot of guys, not to mention the ball movement he adds, because he's an excellent passer. Can't shoot a lick, but an excellent passer. I just wonder how replaceable he is.
Well, remember, KD has said, I'm not about money. I'm not about fame. Okay? And we've heard Clay say, I might take a little bit less money. So we'll see. Those guys will be challenged to do so.
All right, we'll talk much more about this. Coming up on the other side, we got a new favorite to sign LeBron this summer. Oh, we know where he's going. Not so much. Plus, is the United States about to land the 2026 World Cup? We're going back to Moscow live. First things first. Moving on to LeBron James and day 3 of LeBron Watch, the classic drama where he will end up next season. It's a 14-part miniseries, so let's all strap in and get ready to go. Some people are saying Houston, some are saying Philly, some are saying the Celtics, but Vegas is saying the favorite right now is Los Angeles. Lakers are now even money to sign LeBron James this offseason. Doug, I'll start with you. Are the Lakers the best fit for LeBron James in free agency?
Wow. That is I'm trying to answer the question, right? Like, I think he goes to L.A., but I don't know if there is a great fit.
Okay.
Like, that's really, I think, why you're seeing his group reach for, well, maybe Golden State, well, maybe San Antonio, well, maybe Boston. It's because there's no, like, hey, everything works out perfectly. But, look, this is what the Lakers do. The Lakers take a guy who's a star elsewhere and make him a star at the end of his career in Los Angeles. It happened with Wilt. It happened with Kareem. I mean, if you even want to say Pau Gasol had his greatest success there, there's a history of this happening. It happened with Shaquille O'Neal.
Sure.
So I do think that Los Angeles is ultimately his home, and it's the best possible option for him outside of Cleveland.
I don't think LA is the best option. I do think it's interesting that Vegas has them as the favorites. More on that.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you just a second now. We've got some breaking news from the World Cup. For more now, we're going to send it back out to Rob Stone and Alexi Lalas live from Moscow.
All right, Jenna, thank you. The iconic St. Basil's Cathedral right behind us. We are in the middle of Red Square, Kremlin right over my right shoulder, and we are just minutes away from the vote to take place to find out who will be the host nation or nations for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Again, the 2018 FIFA World Cup kicks off tomorrow on Fox. Your host country, Russia, set to take on Saudi Arabia. We have a preview show tonight at 7 Eastern on FS1. But the big news right now outside of Spain, firing their manager one day before the World Cup starts, is what's taking place live right now at the Moscow Expo Center, just a few miles away from us and really the center of Moscow right now. They are moments away, Alexi, from voting for either Morocco or the United bid, which would include the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Real quick, why is this so important for the United States?
Well, as I mentioned, I think that this can be a seminal moment. It can be a moment that changes a generation. We know what the culture is in all 3 of these countries, but in particular in the United States, what the soccer culture is in 2018. Think of what it's going to be in 2026. Think of what it was in 1994. And all of the significant benefits on and off the field that resulted in the Men's World Cup in 1994. You can do that, and you can do that with an injection. But it's not a panacea, but it is a hell of an injection to give to a country, to a culture, and to a sport.
I want to talk about the vote real quick. For the first time ever, it is one nation, one vote, simple majority, transparency. Every nation who they voted for will be out publicly as soon as the Congress closes. The magic number that we're working with right now, that is slightly fluid, is 104 votes. You talk to the U.S. Soccer President Carlos Cadero, and he'll tell you there is a path to victory for this united bid. Again, for the first time ever, there's no more executive committee voting on who will host the World Cup. It is every voting member nation gets one vote. You need a simple majority to win that bid on the first vote. It could go to a second. You're looking live right now at the United bid contingent, and the voting is starting right now. Nervous moments right now in Moscow. It's an electronic vote, so it is going to happen instantaneously. Again, we never got a final number of the nations voting. We think it's 206, meaning a magic number of 104. So voting taking place. Remember, the 2026 World Cup, the first to expand to 48 countries, meaning 80 matches, over 1,100 players. The United bid promising $14 billion in revenues, $11 billion in profit for FIFA. The infrastructure is there. Morocco has a lot of work to do. They were deemed a high risk due to their lack of infrastructure by the FIFA Evaluation Committee. But these nations, Lexi, are voting the way they want to, not the way they have been instructed, at least through how the tours have taken place.
The results are ready, and I'm giving back the floor to FIFA President to announce the winning bidder.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. So we have a winner for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The member associations of Canada, Mexico, and USA have been selected by the FIFA Congress to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Thank you.
That's a big one.
Dear delegate, ladies and gentlemen, silence in the room, please.
I would like to ask now the representatives of the United bid to come on stage, please, and the president of CONCACAF, please.
Well, it has been a rough couple months for U.S. soccer. The men's team failing to qualify for the World Cup this summer here in Russia. That was some much-needed news, not just for America, but for North America. And you see the United bid, the relief, the amount of hours, the travel that they've put in, the millions that they've invested over the course of the last couple weeks to try and secure this bid. This is a game-changing moment for soccer in the States.
You know, I'm a cynical, grumpy old guy, and I think back to 1994. So what happened? This is awesome. This is awesome for all three countries. This is awesome, not just for the sport, and not just for the future of the sport on the field, but off the field, and the culture and the significance of this joint bid, all of the hard work and all the men and women that worked so hard for so many years to make this happen. And as I said in the start, this is also this light post, this 2026 moment that we can work towards. And we're coming into a World Cup here. There's so much going on here. We're sitting here about to get ready to televise a World Cup that doesn't have a United States team, doesn't have a Canada team there. This is a wonderful message to come on the air with. We're going to have wonderful games in this World Cup, but man, oh man, to be able to look to 2026, it warms the cockles of my heart. That is awesome. Man.
I'm not sure you would be here without World Cup 1994.
No. I lived the power, and we get to do it again, and damn, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you heard yells throughout the complex here on Red Square. Some of them were you and me, my friend. So, yes, here's what's still to come in the World Cup future for us. The Men's World Cup kicks off. Oh, by the way, tomorrow, my friend, the Women's World Cup.
I should have recovered by then.
We've got a location already penciled in Paris for next summer. Qatar in 2022, the Women's World Cup still to come, and in 2026, the World Cup coming back to North America, the U.S., Canada, Mexico, victorious.
All right, guys, thank you so much. So there you have it. The United bid.
That's awesome.
Will be hosting the World Cup in 2026.
But honestly, had we been beaten out by Monaco?
Would not have been great. Would not have been great.
Morocco's a great country.
Morocco,
We'll still call it a win, Doug.
But here's the thing. Reason why
1 over 16.
I think here's the reason why it's great. Even if you're like, I'm probably not going to travel to one of the games or anything like that. Is having the World Cup in your general time zones makes following it so much easier. And so that's awesome. And for the United States, like Alexi said when he was getting choked up, this was not making this World Cup was obviously a very low moment for U.S. soccer. You now have, it's not only making the 2022 World Cup, but we're going to be the hosts in 8 years. Can you compete for an actual champ? Can you make the quarterfinals? Can you make the semifinals in 8 years? That's awesome.
Well, and I think also it's like message received. Qatar obviously did not go over well. We're like, man, something's up. And they expanded the field because I think they want us to be a part of the rest of the world. And now we are. We'll be a host. Hopefully be gracious. Hopefully we'll get the finals. And hopefully in L.A., selfishly, in the new stadium.
So everything's worked out the way you wanted it.
But honestly, this is an awesome moment.
We haven't hosted it since '94. And Canada and Mexico obviously are hosting as well. It's a United bid. But the whole thing, it's great.
Alexi called this a moment that changes the generation. So we shall see. Again, the FIFA World Cup kicks off tomorrow. So we look forward to that. Coming up next, can Tiger Woods win his first major in nearly a decade at Shinnecock? That's next. First things first. That's Time for Stories, brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Browns embattled receiver Josh Gordon has some high expectations for Cleveland's receiving core next season. He said he, Jarvis Landry, and the rest of Cleveland's receivers should be considered the best receiving core in the league. Nick, how far off is Josh Gordon here?
If Josh Gordon is healthy and the Josh Gordon that he was pre all the suspensions.
What year was that?
We're talking 4 years ago. I understand that.
Yes.
But Corey Coleman's a good number 3.
Sure.
Jarvis Landry should be a number 2, even though he's paid like a number 1. And Josh Gordon has the ability to be a great number 1. We saw that with a terrible quarterback situation last time he played. And they drafted Antonio Callaway. I understand what he's saying. They're not there yet, but their upside and potential is equal to any team in the league.
Yeah, just stay eligible to play, Josh Gordon, right?
Sure.
And let's see the performance on the field. But I will say this, look, if Baker Mayfield is going to succeed in the NFL, he needs a stellar wide receiving core, okay? He can do all the things, the intangible things. It's the tangibles that's missing, right? The arm strength, the size, the speed. He needs those guys to pick him up. If that all comes together, they got a chance.
They got some talent.
And they do have, look, they do have a good offensive coach. So the one thing he can do is coach offense, coach quarterback.
And their OC, Todd Haley's really good as well.
Also, they can't do worse than they did last year.
That's true.
To the NBA now, according to reports, Kawhi and the Spurs are nearing the healing stage between the two parties. You know what heals all wounds? $219 million.
That does heal a lot of wounds.
Also, Doug, Neosporin. Doug, do you expect Kawhi to sign an extension in San Antonio?
And not Bastatrasin? I go Bastatrasin.
You mean Bastatrasin?
Is it Bastatrasin?
I don't know what you guys are talking
about. It's Bastatrasin, Doug.
Is he signing an extension, Doug?
Of course he's signing an extension. It's a lot like LaMarcus Aldridge. They wanted to get rid of LaMarcus Aldridge, LaMarcus Aldridge wanted to be traded, and then all of a sudden now LaMarcus Aldridge is the greatest Spur ever. Man, he really bought in. That's what they do in San Antonio, right? They mold you. They're not letting him go. He's a top 3 player in the league when he's healthy. Does he have the problem with shutting it down when he's not 100% right? He does. But when he's 100% right, he's really good. And outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, I struggle to find them finding another free agent to sign in San Antonio. He's going to sign for all that money.
Listen, this is a risk for San Antonio, but it's a risk they have to take. They could have played hardball. They could offer him 5 years, $195 and still be offering him $50+ million more than anybody else.
Right.
But then you run the risk of him feeling insulted, of him saying, you know what, I'll take the enormous financial haircut to go elsewhere where I'm really wanted, because he does not have the reputation of a guy that will play through things. How you feel about paying him $40+ million a year, I get why you're squeamish, but you have no choice. He is without question one of the 5 best players in the sport. They don't have a great history of attracting guys to come play in San Antonio.
Right.
You can't let them walk for nothing.
Yeah, the interesting thing is going to be the healing process with him and some of the other players. You know, Tony Parker saying my injury was 100% worse.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's tough.
All right, to the Raptors now. Toronto signed Nick Nurse to replace Dwayne Casey as head coach. Nurse had been an assistant under Casey for the last 5 years. More importantly, he once coached Doug Gottlieb.
That's right.
Doug, what do you think? You think that's why he got the job?
Totally. They called me. I'm like, dude, hire that guy right away. I'll take credit for it. He's a really good coach in the D League before it became the G League. This is an interesting one because it feels like everybody wins, right? Dwayne Casey gets fired, but he gets a new 5-year deal with the Pistons. Granted, the Pistons aren't currently what the Raptors are. Yeah. But, dude, you hit refresh, you get 5 more years of new money and a fresh start. And it appears as though they needed a new message from a new messenger, even if the general theme of things stays the same.
But do you get that new message if you hire a guy that's been there 5 years? If you hire one of the lead assistants for Dwayne Casey, listen, I don't know Nick Nurse the way you do, but I have read before I knew you had played for him. People think highly of him in the league. I also didn't think Dwayne Casey should have been fired. I would have traded DeRozan before I fired Dwayne Casey, but that ship has sailed. But if you wanted a new message, you typically go outside the family. That's my only question here. Like, did they really get a new message?
I think here's what happens. And if you look at when Dwayne Casey was fired, it was after the exit interviews, right? So it's pretty obvious that when they called some of those players in, those players are like, look, everybody thinks it's us and we can't get over LeBron, but there's some things that he's not doing that we don't think is up to snuff in the playoffs. And when they looked around and they interviewed people from outside of Toronto, they said, hey, the answer is right here on our bench. And I'm sure it saved them some money as well to do it.
Sure. All right, back to one of our top stories now. Day 3 of the LeBron Watch, the classic drama of where he will end up next season. It's like a 14-part miniseries, so let's get ready to do this. People are saying
Well, this is the 3rd incarnation of the 14-part miniseries.
Yeah, it is. So we've got a bunch more to go. Some people are saying Philly. Others are saying Boston. But Vegas, well, Vegas is saying the favorite right now, the Lakers.
What is Delaware saying, since you can gamble in Delaware as well?
Lakers are now even money to sign LeBron James this offseason. Nick, what do you think? Are the Lakers the best fit for LeBron?
No. They're not the best fit. Now, that doesn't mean he won't go there. But the idea that, LeBron can't go to Philly, they don't have enough shooting. Well, the Lakers were the 2nd worst three-point shooting team in the league last year. They were a bottom 5 catch-and-shoot three-point shooting team. If he goes to Los Angeles, he's bringing Paul George with him. Well, that's nice. That's one piece. That's one guy that can shoot. And if you're talking about beating the Warriors, I get it. You Paul George, he can guard KD as well as nobody can really guard KD, much like nobody can really guard LeBron. But Paul George is long and athletic and can at least give him some problems. I understand that part of it. But I think the best fit is Philly or Boston. And people with Philly, they say, he and Ben Simmons have a redundant skill set. That's only looking at one side of the ball. Embiid plus Simmons plus LeBron instantly becomes the best defense in basketball. Instantly. Becomes the best defense in the NBA. And while you don't have a lot of shooting with that lineup, what you do have is size in a league that's going small, athletic size, switchable size, and movable size. So I think Philly's a better fit. But I don't know if this is going to be about fit. I think LeBron might be thinking, man, I just took this team to the finals, where my second best player is Kevin Love. And by the way, game 6 and 7 against Boston didn't even have him. And we should have won game 1. We were right there in game 3. I played with a broken hand the last week. So how much does it matter who's on my team as long as I'm on my team?
Well, and as long as you're in the East as well, right? Now, I do think that this is not a stationary target. The East is going to be better next year. If he doesn't go to Philly, we would think, will add a piece or two with that money from J.J. Redick. Boston's is coming. Let's start with your Boston thing, which you plug him in. I'm assuming you're moving Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie.
Okay, which obviously would not sit well with Kyrie Irving, right? Like, you finally got away from LeBron, now you get traded. But if I'm Boston, you're splitting tens. You have a winning hand. Okay, why run the risk of upsetting the apple cart when you already have a winning hand?
Because you get a better player, and you would get a player that's locked in. You don't know that you're going to have Kyrie more than 1 year. You don't know the health of Kyrie's knee. You don't know how much better you are with Kyrie due to his defensive deficiencies. And you have a guy that, you know who you want Jason Tatum to become? LeBron. So you have him learn from LeBron. Like, for all those reasons, I don't think it's splitting tens, but go ahead.
My point is, I think Boston is right there to be the best team in the East. So, you still haven't even seen him with Gordon Hayward, let alone with Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving yet. As for Philadelphia, again, I think you're looking at a stationary target. Remember, LeBron is not moving. He's smartly taking plays off defensively. You're depending upon Joel Embiid to be healthy. You're depending upon either Ben Simmons or LeBron James to play without the ball for the first time in their career, and they are losing some shooting from last year. Here's the thing with L.A. What they've done is they've gutted the back end of their roster. They've allowed it to, when he sits down with them, they can say, look, we had Paul George and you got Lonzo, you got Kuzma, and then let's pick some of the other pieces that you want to add. I think it's more of a blank slate. Are any of them perfect fits? No. The East is an easier path, although the Celtics should be much more competitive if he went to Philadelphia. I think L.A., we look at the West as so dominant, but Houston's going to have to remake themselves with some contracts. And Golden State appears to be, maybe in the last year, we already talked about the Draymond contract and the Durant contract. And again, the point you made is probably the best one, which is there is a confidence/arrogance to LeBron. He goes to Miami, they go to the finals right away. He goes to Cleveland, they stink, they go to the final right away. So we can sit here and go, hey, if he goes to the West, he's not going to go to the finals. But you're LeBron James. Everywhere you've gone. Every team you face, you've gone there. If you get other players around him, why should he believe that he can't win with the Los Angeles Lakers?
Even money now that that LeBron's going to the Lakers, how much will this change back and forth before a decision
What I'll
is
say
made?
is this. If we looked at the last 2 times LeBron changed teams, there was the overwhelming favorite on this day, a few days after the season ended, is not where he went.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So, like, the overwhelming favorite the first time was he's staying in Cleveland, and then I think after that it was Chicago. The second time it was he's staying in Miami. Like, people were really Miami gained more, Cleveland gained more momentum as the offseason draw on. But right when the season ended, people were like, he's not going back to Cleveland, back to Dan Gilbert. So the fact that the Lakers are the overwhelming favorite right now it's not a sure thing.
Well, listen, like he gave us some clues about Miami last time. Okay, and here's the clues that we have this time. All right, he said family is important. He said that his life has changed since the last 2 decisions.
That his son's getting input.
Right, and so they have 2 homes in Los Angeles. They have obviously a huge spread in Akron. And I think if you read the tea leaves that everybody's reading the NBA, that his family wants to be in a home. It's no disrespect to Houston. It's no disrespect to Philly or to Boston or to San Antonio or Timbuktu.
You think it's one of those 2?
I do.
And I think Cleveland's been totally eliminated, which would then mean if Doug's right and I'm right, which is unlikely, but that it's just Los Angeles.
It's
unlikely
that you're right or that we agree.
No, that we would both be correct on something we're seeing slightly differently.
All right, let's move on. Time for your U.S. Open golf headlines, brought to you by DraftKings. Tiger Woods getting ready for his 20th U.S. Open, his first, though, since 2015. Tiger hasn't won a major in 10 years and is in the midst of a very up-and-down season. That's a technical term, Doug. He's struggled at times with his putting, his iron play, and his driving, but only those 3, so we're good. He's hoping for it all to come together, though, this weekend.
He's great driving.
Golf is always frustrating. There's always something that isn't quite right, and that's where we as players have to make the adjustments. And you know, if you've seen the tournaments I've played in this year, there's always something. And hopefully that, you know, this is one of those weeks where I put it all together and even it out, and, you know, we'll see what happens.
All right, Nick, does Tiger have to win this weekend for this big comeback he's mounted to come full circle?
Listen, for the comeback to actually be a full comeback, he's got to win a major. Period, point blank. And we've seen, you mentioned he has struggled in every part of his game, but just different weekends. So there was a weekend where he had 59 out of 59 putts within 10 feet, which is insane. Then there was a weekend a few weeks ago where he couldn't putt at all, but his driving was excellent. So he hasn't had all 3 come together.
And that's why he said, I'd love to see it all come together this weekend.
But in 2013, Tiger Woods was PGA Tour Player of the Year.
Yep.
He won he won 5 times more than anyone on tour, led the tour in money, and nobody thought he was back. We're not saying, is Tiger back to 2013 form? No. We're talking about, is Tiger back to the championship form the last time he won the U.S. Open, when he did it on a flipping broken leg and a partially torn ACL. That is how we're going to judge this guy. He will be back when he gets his 15th major. When we start saying, can he catch Jack? So, yes, in order for him to actually be back, the Valspar doesn't matter. The Arnold, nothing matters other than these 4 times a year that he has a chance to add to the only record he cares about.
Look, he's coming, and he's going to win one. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I don't think it's going to be this weekend, because the only thing that matters at Shinnecock is putting. I mean, if you can't putt at Shinnecock, Retief Goosen won it last time because he was the best putter on tour. He was the best putter over 4 days. And here's a guy coming off a tournament where all of a sudden he could not putt in a place in which he had won 5 times. It made no sense. But he used to play Army golf off the tee, left, right, and now he's hitting it right down the fairway. He's the best iron player in the history of the game. His chipping yips are gone. He's going to win a major. It's a matter of when, not if. But I agree with you. You can't say the comeback is complete until he wins a major. Now, a lot of people, if we look at it from a real perspective, a year ago, people thought he might not ever play golf again.
It's unbelievable.
So if we have true perspective, what he's done is nothing short of miraculous. And I don't think you're ever too old to play golf. I don't think you're ever too drunk to fish. Okay? So age, he is timeless. He is ageless.
Yes.
It's going to happen. I just don't think he's there yet because if you haven't put it all together, you're not going to put it together in a test like Shinnecock Hills.
And it's a really good point Doug makes, and I don't want it to get overlooked. He had spinal fusion surgery. CC brings it up all the time. Nobody's ever come back to play on the PGA Tour at a high level from that surgery. The fact that he has competed, the fact that he has been in tournaments, the fact that we go into each tournament and say, hey, Tiger could win it, is a remarkable story.
Yep.
But his level of expectation and our level of expectation for him are so much higher than that.
Well, he's always said, judge me by my majors, not by the other tournaments. So what you're saying is right. It's not just us wanting to judge him if he wins 15. It's him wanting to judge him if he wins 15.
And he wants a chance at 18. And he's 42 years old, and he's got 14 of them. He wins this week, and we're like, okay, so he's at 15. He's probably going to win one more Masters, at least. So that puts him at 16. So then all of a sudden, it opens the door back up.
And as CC says, that counts for 2. So then he really just has one more left.
That's only with LeBron and the Warriors.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, could Lamar Jackson be the Ravens starter week 1? We'll break that down next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Eric Mangini is with us. Coach, I know you were super excited about what happened with the World Cup. You were like, super excited. I know, we got the bid, 2026. We'll see you there.
Wait. And it was an overwhelming, we like 134 to 65 was the vote, and 60 of the 80 matches will be in the U.S.
Yeah, well.
20 of the 80 will be in Canada and Mexico, and every match from the quarterfinals on will be here in the United States. It's really exciting.
It's very cool. We can finally, go see a game.
No doubt. You're not going to Russia on our week off?
Go see a match.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what,
Doug?
Absolutely.
Little snooty with the soccer.
I'm not snooty. Soccer people are snooty. They're going to go, Jenna Wolf, it's a pitch.
Oh, my God.
It's a match.
With my name. The Baltimore Ravens have 2 signal callers, quarterbacks, as they say in the NFL, at OTAs this week. At times, both on the field together. Joe Flacco coming off kind of a rough year, and their newly drafted guy to Louisville, Lamar Jackson. Ravens are enjoying the creative process, getting them both involved. According to teammates, Lamar seems to be blowing people away.
Every time he runs, I'm in awe because most people, even especially a quarterback, can't move the way he does. So you just know that this year he's going to make some plays for sure.
Once he gets out the pocket, it's like watching a young Michael Vick. I mean, it's amazing to watch. So when you're defending him, you just got to act like you're tagging off. You don't want to be on the highlight reel.
It's a nice guy to be compared to, Michael Vick, if you're a young guy in this league. What do you think the ceiling is for Lamar Jackson? Let's just keep it to the first year at least.
Well, they're going to get him involved, obviously, and they have Greg Roman there, which I think really helps because of the work that he did in San Francisco and the creativity that he showed in San Francisco. So I like that aspect of it. In terms of how big a package it becomes, that's going to remain to be seen. I don't think it's going to be one of these situations where he eventually gets 50% of the plays. I would imagine it'd be about 10 to 15% of the plays, even in the best situation.
Well, the other thing, though, that we got to recognize is early on, if Flacco is the starter early on and you're just using him in a bit role, that, at least according to recent NFL history, will be short-lived. Every quarterback taken in the first round since Aaron Rodgers has started at some point their rookie season.
Except Christian Heck.
He wasn't a first-round pick. Yeah, every single first-round guy starts at some point. And Joe Flacco has been deteriorating over the last few years. There's a reason that Ozzie Newsome traded back into the first round in his final draft as general manager to go get this player. And so I understand that there are some concerns about his refinement as a passer, but there are concerns about Joe Flacco's ability at this point in his career as a passer, and he brings nothing to the table athletically like Lamar Jackson does. So I think I would be surprised if the Ravens don't go have a relatively quick trigger with Joe Flacco, especially because this is the last year they're tied to him from a salary cap standpoint.
Well, there's also, Coach, wouldn't you say the smart fit would be the slash role that the Steelers used with Cordell Stewart, right? I know you said recent history. That's not that recent, right? Where you put him all over the field. And even if you listen to those two comments, they didn't say, man, does he read a defense well? Or, man, does he put the ball on time, on target, exactly where he's supposed to be? They said when he gets out of the pocket, look, he's probably a better athlete than Mike Vick was. A better, which sounds ridiculous considering Vick was arguably the best athlete to ever play the position. But there's a long way to go in starting not just at quarterback, but in that division. That is a tough and rugged division. They're going to hit you and drive you into the ground.
And you don't design plays where they're just getting out of the pocket. Now, you can have bootlegs. You can have those move-the-pocket type plays. But what these guys are talking about is when the play breaks down, the things that he can do. And that's great, but it's hard to design the whole offense from that perspective. And I don't know if he's going to beat out Joe Flacco this year. And Joe Flacco still has a lot of money that would be dead money if they moved on from next year. So I don't know if that's a guarantee either. And you got to look at Joe Flacco. He did win a Super Bowl. He did have an amazing season. And I think the pressure being put on Joe Flacco is a really good thing. The last time he played well was when he had the pressure of the contract. Now he has the pressure of someone sitting behind him. I would expect to see him play much better than he has.
It's a great point. Like, some dudes do well under pressure. Some dudes have to have everything just right and stable. And look, you know who Flacco is? We know he was. Of course he was overpaid. Everybody overpays somebody after they win a Super Bowl when they're in the contract year. Every quarterback seems to get overpaid. Yeah, but he's 22. He's somewhere between 22 and 25 touchdowns and somewhere between 12 and 15 interceptions. And if you can live with that, you can live with Flacco. He can make every throw. No, he's not a great athlete. And no, he's not a great vocal leader. That's who he is.
Listen, to me, the Ravens don't have enough. They are not the Ravens they used to be. They do not have enough talent defensively to where your quarterback can be just a guy and you can compete in that division. You need your quarterback to be a difference maker. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson can be that immediately in the NFL. You rarely see that a guy can step into the NFL and instantly be an above-average quarterback. What I am saying is I think the earlier he gets to play, the quicker he gets to that spot. And Flacco's been 24th or worse in quarterback rating each of the last 3 years. The Ravens have only been over 500 once in the last 5 years. Like, they know where they're at. There was a reason they drafted Tyrod Taylor years back and tried to develop him, but then Flacco wins the Super Bowl and Tyrod just sits there for 4 years.
Put him in?
I mean, you got to, obviously, you have to wait and see how he plays, but I would not. I would have a very short trigger. I would, at the first chance I get to get Lamar Jackson real reps, and not only, and this is what I'm curious from you, how much better will he get with reps being the starter in practice, with being named the starter and the game plan is installed through him, that he gets all those number one reps. Like, if I'm Baltimore, my path to contention again is through this young man, and so I want to give him every chance he has to succeed.
Well, they're giving him every chance he has to succeed right now by saying he's going to be active on game one. He's going to play in those games. He's going to have a package that's specific to his skill set. How many of these other rookie quarterbacks are going to have that? How many other rookie quarterbacks are going to actually play in the games and play early? So he's going to have that advantage. But the idea that it has to go through him and that Joe Flacco is completely done, I don't think that's true. Joe Flacco has done a lot of good things, and to say it's just been his fault in Baltimore, I don't think that's fair either.
I don't want to, and if I said it's just his fault, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is you have to be honest about where you're at as a team. And if I thought they still had a top 5 defense, or they still had Jamal Lewis running the football, and you know what? What we want from our quarterback is a caretaker. Then I would understand the argument, because I think Lamar's going to make a ton of mistakes. Lamar will have a 4-interception game. He'll run himself into fumbles. I get that. But because I don't think they have the talent, that type of talent, the difference between I'd rather go 5-11 with Lamar Jackson than 8-8 with Joe Flacco. Is my point. I don't think they have the ability to be much better.
Again, but that's a fan perspective and that's an owner perspective. The coach's perspective is I'd rather go 8-8. I got a better chance of keeping my job and maybe sneaking into the playoffs and stealing one. Probably should have been a playoff team last year. If one or two things kind of go the way. Remember, last day of the season, they end up finding a way to back out of the playoffs. But again, that's the problem with draft. That's why you don't draft him. Because now all of a sudden Joe Flacco's looking over his shoulder. Now all of a sudden things go bad. Everybody points to Lamar Jackson, and you are more likely to go 5-11. I actually think that's a mistake, and I think that's the coach's perspective.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you see Lamar Jackson catching some passes from Joe Flacco, or even running the ball, getting it handed off from Joe Flacco. I think the package is going to be extensive, and the real benefit there is it forces teams to spend time on working on both guys, which takes away from focusing on the one.
When you do that, doesn't that take away from what your goal is with Lamar Jackson if you're using him in other positions?
Well, you could say that, but the goal at the end of the day is to win. And the goal at the end of the day is to put as much pressure on the defense as you possibly can. And with his ability to do all those things, I think it is unique versus some of the other running quarterbacks we've seen.
All right, let's break it there. Coach, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, could the Warriors be breaking up sooner than we think? I didn't know we were talking about breaking up. Next on First Things First. Hi, and welcome to First Things First. Here with Doug Gottlieb, Nick Wright, Steven Jackson joins the show this morning. Steven, good morning. Great to have you.
Thank you for coming in today for CC.
What's up?
Jenna Wolf.
Mwah. Shake.
There you go. Hearty handshake.
Cerebrally, I can't quite keep up with. Is that a word?
Yeah, you didn't use it properly, but it is a word.
Cerebrally?
Yeah,
cerebrally, I couldn't keep up with all the various forms of dapping it up. So, is that a right word?
Sure, Jenna.
You see him stand out this
Wow.
Good morning, everybody.
It's great to have you. Let's start with some basketball. The Warriors held their championship parade yesterday. Smiles, laughter, champagne, celebration, pageantry. Oh, and one kind of awkward moment. You know how sometimes jokes can be a little too real? How it's supposed to be funny, but is it really funny? Well, the Warriors general manager was caught in a dill pickle, and this is what happened when asked about Kevin Durant. Take a listen.
And then I heard you tell Kevin Durant he can have whatever contract he wants next year.
Yeah, that was just for the media. He can't have anything like that at all. Mid-level. Yeah, mid-level, behind closed doors.
Because I think last year he told Steph he could have any contract he wants too.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, that was different. He's been here from the run, the way before days. He's earned it.
and there ended the Warriors' cohesion right there.
So much for chemistry. That's when it began. The first fissure.
You enjoyed that, Steven. You got a nice little chuckle out of that. What do you think? You think pride could get in the way of the Warriors dynasty if we start talking about who's been here longer, who's more valuable to the team, contracts?
If you ever heard a joke, that was a great joke.
Yep.
That was the biggest joke ever. They just having a good time. If they interviewed him 2 days ago and he said, Kevin Durant can have any contract he wants. He can sign. He meant that day. That was a joke. They was having a good time there at the parade, but we all know KD's going to be back at that team. He's going to get any contract, any number he wants. They're going to keep him and Steph happy, and they're going to continue to win championships.
I know the Warriors are going to offer Kevin Durant any contract he wants. I think anyone that assumes they know for certain what Kevin Durant's going to do in 18 days is lying, though. Lying to themselves. Kevin Durant is a guy who admitted right after he picked the Warriors the first time, the next day he called his agent, or Rich Kleiman, I think his agent, business partner, and said, hey, did I just bleep up my life? Is this the biggest mistake I've ever made? Kevin Durant's a guy who, after winning his first Finals MVP and championship, was going through some form of existential crisis to where he wanted to relitigate the decision anonymously with people on the internet. I think the Warriors would be crazy to not say to KD, what do you want, man? You want a no trade? We'll give you a no trade. You want the full max? You want a 1+1 so you can do it again next year? You write the contract, and we will sign you to it. That's obviously what they should do. But the idea that this is a 100% done deal and that Kevin Durant couldn't have a change of heart, 2 days ago, he said, I'm going to retire at 35. And 9 hours later, he went on Jimmy Kimmel's show and said, I don't know what the hell I was talking about, retiring at 35. So I don't know. If I'm Bob Myers, I maybe don't make those jokes until he has actually signed the contract. Right. But, I mean, I don't think that's as done of a deal as everyone seems to.
I think it's a done deal. What isn't a done deal is Kevin Durant knowing who he is. He's in this mission of self-discovery. He tried to be a tough guy this year. He's not a tough guy, right? He just getting the technical fouls. That's Draymond's thing, not your thing. What are you doing? And I think that's kind of part of what's at play here. But the question that Jenna posed is a really good one. Does pride come before the fall? And if you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Cavaliers. J.R. Smith, too much money. They signed him for too much money. Tristan Thompson, too much money. He's not worth $80 million. Just not. Okay, so listen. So we look at Draymond Green, and Draymond Green's like, yo, I'm done taking pay cuts. I can get the Supermax. Like, look, Draymond, I love you. Okay, you're invaluable, but you can't shoot. Okay, and you on your own team are not a 20-point-a-game guy. You're a great integral part of a championship dynasty, but you are not a Supermax contract guy. We can't be the Warriors without him. Klay Thompson has previously said, like, hey, look, I'm willing to take less. We'll see. So it is a maybe put your money elsewhere where your mouth is sort of thing. Because if they can keep the salaries in line, then yeah, they should be fine. But if their pride, their ego, and you know how much this league is about respect, it isn't about the actual dollars.
It's about where you are in ranks to your peers.
Right. How much money I make. If they can keep that in check, they can keep this thing going. But history tells us that's the hardest thing to do.
Well, and the good thing about it was helping the Warriors. He did an interview recently, and he was asked.
Who's he?
Kevin Durant.
Okay, sorry.
And he was asked, what do we plan on doing in free agency? He said, I plan on signing with the Warriors. So that's a good sign. You know, he's never came out public. Last time he was a free agent and said where he was going next.
Sure.
So the fact that he publicly said that he planned on staying with the Warriors, that's a good sign for them.
What do you think about? Listen, if I'm the Warriors and Draymond's demanding the max, I give him the max. Like, you're going to be capped out anyway. Once you play Steph $40 million a year and KD $40 million a year, no matter what the only difference between paying Draymond $30 million or $26 million is the luxury tax payment you got to pay.
Right.
Like, you're Joe Lacob. You bought this beachfront real estate. There's only 30 of them in the world. You don't do that to be cheap. Like, and Draymond, while on a lot of other teams, he would not be very valuable. On this team, they have to have him.
With that team and the salary cap and all the money they got to pay people, you got to understand, this is why they need to win championships. This is why they need to play to the end of the season, to sell more tickets, to sell more apparel. This is a big reason why they have this team, and they have to go on and win championships because they need to make more money for this team.
It's one of the reasons, though, that if they were going to make a move, like, look, the idea of moving Klay down to Southern California, where he's from, his dad broadcast for the Lakers, is still an open possibility. Or if you're going to move Draymond, you know, someone who is a true Supermax caliber player, but their contract is before this new Supermax kicked in. Right. That's kind of the magic mix for a move that you could make. Could you go out and get an Anthony Davis or some other star?
That's the only move that makes sense to me.
But so let me ask you about the Anthony Davis thing, though, because this is my issue with any Anthony Davis flirtation, is the players hear that too. And if I'm Klay, I'm like, wait, hold on.
We just won 3 championships.
We just won 3 championships. And you guys, theoretically, on my next deal are going to want me to take a little bit less. I'm never going to be paid as high as Steph or KD. But if I take a little bit less, it makes it easier to trade me for Anthony Davis. If I'm Draymond, maybe one of the reasons I want the max is if I take less than the max, it makes it easier to trade me for an Anthony Davis. Like, that's, if you're one of those guys hearing that, they know they can't sign Anthony Davis outright. They know one of them or both of them, and Klay and Draymond, would have to be moved. How do you think that Anthony Davis rumor sits with those guys?
Well, I mean, you hear that a lot, though, and that's something you can't control as a player. Almost every player heard that they're getting traded. Shaq got traded, right? So anybody can get traded, but I think at the end of the day, you only worry about what you can't control, and that's playing basketball. You can't worry about getting traded because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. In a position like Klay said he didn't mind taking a pay cut to stay on the championship team. But if he has that in the back of his mind,
that's what I'm saying.
Traded,
I don't mind taking a pay cut to stay here and win championships. I don't like taking a pay cut so you can ship me to New Orleans.
Right.
So then, to go play with Rondo.
But they wouldn't do that. I think the idea if they talk to LeBron James, that won't sit well with them, right? Like, hey, that's not who we are, because they would have to move both of those pieces in order to get the LeBron James deal done. I think the Anthony Davis is, hey, look, if Draymond's, you mentioned Shaquille O'Neal. Why did he get traded from L.A.? Want a new contract. Why did he get traded from the Miami Heat? Want a new contract. That's the reason why. So that we have history as our guide, that if these guys aren't willing to go like, look, we love you, Draymond. We're going to pay you over $100 million. We're just not going to pay you over $200 million because we got to kind of make it work. And if you're not willing to accept that, then you have to understand we're going to have to look elsewhere. That's a real discussion that you have to have with a semi-hard cap that they have right now, because they got to fix that bench. Otherwise, Houston's a Chris Paul injury away from having caught them this year.
Yep.